Hi, I'm Angified. I started Angified Presents.
We share the love of music.
It has been medicine and therapy. Nothing else worked.
It has saved many of us. With mental health, we need to open our eyes.
Hurt people hurt people.
We ask that you listen, comprehend, and relate with your ears.
Form that heart of unity and one.
We share on this stage.
Statistics, feelings,
And ourselves.
we stand with the belief to be you, to be heard, and to be original.
We all may be different, with opinions and beliefs.
At the end of the day, we are all brothers and sisters.
We are family.
We ask that you join us in a magical journey with artists from around the world. Open your minds, let in the love,
and listen with your hearts.
We all want a better tomorrow. Be one.
Communicate and look out for one another. And then, and only then, will you find the world.
We
will
find
find
peace
peace
in all the world.
You'll find the world. And you will find in this shining world. He was among us in every boy and girl. Many have been broken, red hearts turn black. Love will melt the ice and turn it back, and you will find the world. You will find the world. You will find
gravitational iron workstations and music tools. We explore theory, gear and MIDI too. How to weigh and compose, and the art of arranging. Taking a look at AI and how the times have changed. On a PC or a Mac and even with a mobile device, we'll be talking about it all every Thursday night. From software to plugins and synths that entice. Dive deep into tech and let creativity take flight. Talkin IT. We're talking IT. Come and join in and have some fun. It's highly educational with a lot to learn. From bedroom producers to seasoned pros, we're breaking it down so knowledge grows. Whether you're a DJ or a beat-making wizard, we got the tips and tricks to make your sound sizzle. Mixing and mastering, that's our jam. With the tutorials and tips on how much RAM. Get the best quality from your setup and gear. Tune in every week and lend us your ear. We're talking IT. Come and join in and have some fun. It's highly educational with a lot to learn. We're talking IT. We're talking IT. Every Thursday night on Angified.
Ooh, it's that time again.
That's right. Every single week, right here.
On Angified.
That's right. Where else would we be?
Oh, and I have one word for tonight's topic. In the words of Thomas Dolby, science.
Science is a good thing.
Yes.
She blinded me with science.
This one's going to feel almost like we're back in school doing science experiments. Some of this stuff is so cool. I wish that I'd gotten to do some of these things in school.
We did some crazy stuff in science in school. And even like outside of school, like there were some science projects that we did just kind of off the thing. Like we did, what did we do? We made aspirin, we made nylon. Like we did some crazy science stuff.
Yeah, she's like, I got some experiments. The most I did was like the egg drop, stupid science stuff.
Sure. Oh, I like the big slinky too. Like physics class, we had like a 50-foot long slinky to study traveling waves. That was always good.
Wait till you see some of these things that science is coming up with here. Let's jump to the cave.
Nice.
See what we got. No, wrong side. I told you the other side. I like being on this side.
There we go.
But I like looking this way.
All better.
So, you know, I as I started going down this rabbit hole, it's actually the next video after this that got me to go to this one, because superconductors need to understand more about what they are and what they do in order to understand the next one. And the German science guy, we like our German science.
Yes.
He's going to explain what superconductors are and this possible finding that they might have come up with, where room temperature superconductors, which has kind of been like the missing link in what we can do with these things.
Yeah, because in order to get superconducting normally, you have to get very, very cold. And the warmer, you know, the closer we can get to ambient normal room temperature with a superconductor like that, the closer we are to having computers that can actually use it without having to have massive amounts of internal cooling.
I thought it was a big deal. I was like, damn, if they really can smooth this out, then some of the things we're looking at, the possibilities and where we go from here, where it excites me the most, I think, is on the medical side. There's a lot of other mechanical and technical possibilities with all of this, but on the medical side, the possibilities are really groundbreaking.
for me, a lot of it was the possibility. If you look at magnetic levitation, so like you look at maglev trains, the high-speed bullet trains, those all use superconductors, and they have to be cooled down a lot. If you get to a room temperature superconductor where you don't have to put all that cooling in, you're saving all that electricity, and all of a sudden, those maglev trains make a lot more sense.
Yeah, and we almost had a video in here on magnetic anti-gravity. I really had to like nitpick
Sure.
which ones, because I could have made 3 episodes in the stuff that I wanted to go into.
Hey, science is a big category, and we can go down a lot of different rabbit holes for sure.
Yeah, well, this will be a regular throughout the year because I definitely am interested in all these new cool things that they're coming up with. And ferrofluid.
Oh yeah, that's
Must
fun
be
stuff.
familiar. Yeah, I was like, wow, man, I want to get me some of this.
Yeah.
Because we're going to see a demonstration of what ferrofluid is, what you can do if you do have a superconductor with it, and he's going to do some really interesting things.
It's as close to magic as you're going to see. Yeah.
And watching him do some of these things, I can almost see like using this as a virtual smart cable on top of things, and this is how you could build a possible ship that self-heals and self-fixes itself in some cases, if you can control this stuff in a intelligent kind of way.
What some of it reminds me of is remember we did that shake table thing where that you would basically you pour like flour or whatever on this little table, and then you subject it to a frequency. It's like basically a big speaker.
Yeah.
Put a frequency, and as you go to certain frequencies, all of a sudden the sand grains just all jump to a certain position, like they have to. It's like they can't be over here. They all have to be in this particular pattern. This is like a 3-dimensional version of that, where it all has to do with the frequency of what it's exposed to and the fields that it's exposed to.
With magnets.
With magnets. The magic of magnets.
Yep. So the action
it looks
lab,
like a football right there, but it is not a football.
Yeah. Well, you'll see why.
Yeah.
He really does some cool experiments. The action lab, and almost every one of these channels, freshy science channels for us. So we got some cool additions to our following list.
Nice. I'm always a big fan of any kind of cool looking science demonstration or project.
Yeah. And these channels, I mean, you can tell people really love their science, because this one, ASAP Science, 10.8 million subscribers. People love their science.
Oh, yeah. With good reason.
And when you're talking about things like this, he's going to show us the first liquid robot. And I'm like, I'm wondering, is it tied to like what we were going to see in the previous video? But no, this is, I mean, it's a little bit related, but it's, I guess you could call this a robot.
That's the question, is how you define it, because when you get to molecular machines, that's when you're getting down to the really, really small, and now you're trying to define what exactly is a machine. Is it able to do work? Is it able to do work autonomously? There's a number of different things you would have to kind of define in order to break things down.
Well, and where I see the best use cases, again, with this, the medical world is where they're really thinking out the box. Like, we can send little, this leads to nanotechnology, which I was gonna have a nanotechnology video smack dab in the middle of this, but I got so caught up in looking at all these cool minerals and materials that I was like, we can do a whole night on nanotech. But
yeah,
some of what we're seeing here is what's leading to that kind of innovation.
Yeah. And we're also talking about things like quantum dots. We'll get to that point at some point as well, where the actual size is what determines the color of what these things are. So like, we're getting, again, the closer or the more refined you can get your measurements, the more perfect you can reproduce, these things.
You must have been peeking at some of the other videos.
No cheating this week.
Anton, Anton, he I watched one video earlier where I guess they've gotten the Schrodinger's cat conundrum. They've measured it down to the quantum level. Like, this is as big as it gets.
Nice.
So the other material that we've talked about this in, in the back rooms, and like, the possibilities with graphene, when it was first discovered. It's like, oh my God, this is the potential here. Uh, been slow to develop, but it is actually starting to come into its own on possibilities with graphene. And really wanted to get this channel in here a long time ago. It's one of my favorites on my YouTube when it comes to science videos and like all the cool. Every day she's got something cool. Sabina Hassenfelder.
Gotta love Sabina.
Awesome science channel.
Definitely.
Yeah, she's my Neil deGrasse.
There you go. One of my favorite things about graphene is if you see that sheet that you see in the picture there behind her, like if you took two of those and laid them on top of each other, and you have one that is just 1 degree spun from the other one, you spin it just 1 degree, and all of a sudden these different properties start to emerge. And that's where it's really interesting stuff, where it's not just the material itself, but it's the fact that all of a sudden you place it next to something else and it starts to exhibit different properties that you weren't expecting.
It has a durability and ability to conduct in ways that like our typical materials don't. And the possibilities, if they can really like figure out how to use it, I've seen some where they're talking bulletproof, like bulletproof vests.
Absolutely. I mean, that patch that you're looking at right there, those are very strong carbon bonds between those, and it's all single sheet. So they're all holding onto each other as tightly as they possibly can. So they're weak if you look at it from a standpoint of it's extremely flimsy because it's so thin.
Yeah.
But it's so strong, strength to weight ratio is the point where there's nothing really stronger. Like you have a sheet of solid diamond, which is basically what that is, just in a different configuration. And that's what makes it so strong. But when you get multiple layers of that sandwiched together, that's where you start getting into the bulletproof vest kind of thing, where a bullet that would be hitting and pulling layers down with the bullet, into other layers rather than letting it break through.
That's what Superman's suit is made of.
Basically. It's trying to just absorb the energy and let the energy dissipate and go elsewhere rather than having it funnel into that one spot, which is normally what happens.
Yeah. And it turns out you can actually make this stuff, not like a lot of it or like to the level that they do in the commercial, but you can actually make this stuff at home. I watched a video on how to do that earlier.
You can make it with Scotch tape. And that's one of the ways that the initial invention was derived, which I think is great. It wasn't a $10 billion machine that took, massive multi-country funding and all that. It was, you could take a piece of tape and you go, hey, look, I got this little thin layer of stuff over here. And then, figuring out how to get it off the tape is another story. But, being able to isolate it and take a look at it, that was the first thing. And to see that it actually looks like that, which is the other amazing thing. That hexagonal structure really is there.
Yeah, and that's a structure that is super solid. So it's no wonder that they were like, damn, we made something cool here.
And the ingredient list, carbon. I mean, those are carbon atoms.
A pencil and some tape.
Well, right there, those are every one of those little nodes where those lines come together. That's a carbon atom, and those lines are just the bonds between them. So there's nothing in there but carbon.
Yeah, science at its best. And I couldn't ignore magnetism just in general, because there's so much there to talk about. But when I saw this, and this channel is, if you're like a motor enthusiast like I am, like there's a million ways to build motors and a million ways to fuel them and do things, and this channel kicks ass at like looking at all different types of motors. And this one's a magnetic motor that kind of does the impossible.
Nice.
It's just very smartly designed, and the idea of using it, like I think if we were to build like those UFOs, that anti-gravity stuff, some of this approach and some of this technology's got to be somewhat related to anything like that.
That's the thing, is unknown technology is always mysterious. But axial flux motors, and there's definitely different types, whether it's the Wankel engine, the internal combustion engine. I mean, there's all kinds of different ways of doing things. And the fact that we've been doing things the same way for so long doesn't mean it's the only way. It means that it's the best way that we came up with at the time. And even if we found better ways, because we know perfectly well that there are, better ways of doing things or better technologies that have come out that have been buried because, big corporations might not have wanted to have their technology get,
Sometimes we become industry complacent where the industry is like, you're not changing to a different technology because we like this technology. It's ours and we sell millions and millions of it every day. Sometimes our complacency is simply a result of the industry's success with how they built things. So we're probably still going to be using gas in cars for a while to come, but it'd be cool to get a magnetic flying car.
Yeah, I'm on board. Let's do it.
And speaking of, I said we were going to get at least one flying car in here.
Nice.
And this one, I mean, there's a couple of them out there, and I've been going down a flying car rabbit hole, a couple of different approaches, but with this one, it's kind of taking the helicopter philosophy to a different direction where it flies like a helicopter would. It has the same kind of navigation, but without rotors. When
I picture this as...
Well, I think like the steamship, but I'm like, how's that gonna fly?
Well, the idea is that basically each of those little cylinders that you see, the two in the back top and the two in the front there, each one of those has basically little wings that are captive in there, and you're going to spin the heck out of those little drums. And the idea is that you're going to be generating lift the same way that you generate lift on an airplane, but instead of a big old wing, you just have a tiny little wing in each of those drums that you're spinning around really fast, is the way that kind of works.
You may be on to something there.
So you're trying to generate lift inside of there. So they're basically spinning like that. So instead of a bird strike hitting a wing or going into an engine, it would basically hit against that little, spinning drum, I guess you would call it, on the front corners and the top there.
I'd hate to be the bird that gets caught in those things.
Yeah, I mean, ideally, you're trying not to hit birds. I mean, in general, but I'm just saying that when you look at the points of failure, like when I look at a single
what happens
jet
when the
engine
bird's trying to hit you?
Yeah, I mean, there's a whole flock that come at you sometimes, and you're just in trouble. But that's where a single engine plane is much, it doesn't have that backup. Whereas in, like an F-14 Tomcat or something, where you have something with a twin jet engines, if one of them goes out from a strike like that, you still have an engine to land the plane. Whereas if you're in a single jet engine and it's gone, you're done. So that's where, when I look at something like this, if I see one of those four have a problem, I don't see the other three holding the plane or the craft in the air is the only thing that I look at when I see something like that.
Yeah, well, and I'm also curious as to the fuel use, efficiency. I'm assuming it's off of fuel, but it would be cool if it was magnetic engines. Hey, it ties into what we're going to be seeing. But
well, it is down to just mechanical at this point, where you're going to be spinning those cylinders. So whatever you're going to use to spin that, you could use a gas engine to spin, to spin something to do that. You could use an electric motor to do that. It's all depending on, the weight that you want to bring with you and what you want to use for the power and how much power it'll take for that particular kind of engine. Because as you were saying before, the efficiency and the way of generating lift, that is a different way of doing it. I've seen it done that way for a drone, but if you're trying to talk about lifting actual useful weight at a speed that makes sense for actual transit, that's what we'll have to see what the numbers look like.
Yeah, and you don't want to run out of gas when you're in the middle of the air.
No,
That's the one downside to flying cars. I mean, if I'm on the ground and I run out of gas.
I'm also a very big guy, so like it takes a lot of gas to carry me and lift me and move me around. So I respect the fact that it takes a lot of energy to move me around.
Yeah, we're going to need a bigger tank for Glenn.
Oh, yeah. A big flying car.
Yeah. So before we get to the flying cars, we're going to start with understanding what superconductors are and this new discovery that researchers have come to with it's not to say that they've solved the issue of room temperature, but they're getting closer. And Freshie channel at German Science Guy. We're going to learn from the Germans about superconductors because they know their shit.
A lot of times when it comes to the advances that I had seen in material science with this type of thing, it usually comes down to the different combinations that they're putting together. So it'd be some kind of exotic, combination of different things that they've tried before, but they're just trying them in different combinations now, where it's 12 of this instead of 9 of that, or whatever, in each of the chemical symbols that they're trying to make a new variation on.
Wow, man, and he does have an impressive resume. Dr. Jacob Butemps studied physics and social sciences at the University of Cologne, where he also did my doctor's about artificial intelligence. Hey, we will be back for some of that too. And learning on YouTube. Quite the match, isn't it? Yes. I am glad we found you. We like our science and we like our Germans.
Indeed.
And this is the kind of discovery, you don't come across it on your typical news channels and things like. I wish I did. I wish the news would actually give me more of this stuff because this is cool news.
And that's the thing, is that's where it comes down to how you seed your feed, because my feed is full of this kind of stuff all the time. Like I see, my feed is about half of this and half science, or half music and half science. So I get like half and half.
So this feed is now going to be like that too, because we just added 6 freshies.
Yeah, I see Sabina's feed, videos come up in my feeds all the time.
Yeah, I'm glad that I finally got her over to our subscription, because I see all her videos on mine. I'm like, damn, this would be perfect for Thursday.
Bring them in.
Yeah, finally, Sabina.
All
right, so let's start by understanding these superconductors, because we're going to need to understand that to see the next couple of videos and how they're going to utilize the things they're going to show us.
Researchers at the California Institute of Technology have achieved a real breakthrough in superconductor research. They have discovered a new superconductor state, and this could be an important step towards room temperature superconductors, the holy grail of solid state physics, which has always been within reach and yet never quite so. Room temperature superconductors could revolutionize energy transmission, medicine, and quantum computers. The problem, until now, extremely low temperatures of around -200°C have usually been required to create superconductors. That is why research into room temperature superconductors has been ongoing for years. And I often report on breakthroughs on this channel, and of course I don't want to keep this breakthrough from you either. In this video you will learn how this new superconductor works, the physics behind it, and whether it will soon revolutionize our technology. And with that, welcome to the German Science Guy. I'm Dr. Jakob Beton, and in Germany we say Los geht's! Conductors without electrical resistance, also known as superconductors, are extremely important for the future, for example for loss-free power transmission. But there are already an incredible number of different applications for superconductors. One of these is, of course, electromagnets. They can be used to generate strong magnetic fields. These are then used, for example, in magnetic resonance imaging, so MRI machines in hospitals or in research, or also, for example, in particle accelerators or nuclear fusion reactors. And in Munich and Essen, in Germany, a superconductor cable has even been laid. I also made a video about this. I will link this at the end of this video. And now there has been another breakthrough in superconductors. The California Institute of Technology, or Caltech, has discovered a new superconducting state. But before we get to this, the question is, what exactly is a superconductor and how does it work? Basically, it works like this. So normal conductors have electrical resistance. This has to do with the interactions between the electrons and the crystal lattice of the material. A superconductor, on the other hand, is a material with electrical resistance of almost zero. However, a material is only considered a superconductor if it meets 3 conditions. Firstly, the material must fall below a certain temperature limit. This temperature limit is also known as a critical temperature or transition temperature. It is called like this because the loss of resistance occurs very abruptly. However, in order to achieve a resistance of almost zero, the superconductor must be extremely cold. How cold varies depending on the material used. However, the temperature is often just above absolute zero. This is the case with mercury, for example. Here the critical temperature is 4.2 Kelvin, or exactly -268.95°C. Dutch physicist and Nobel Prize winner Heike Kamerlingh-Onnes discovered the phenomenon in this material in 1911 already. However, there are now also superconductors that do not need to be cooled to such low temperatures. A distinction is therefore now made between low temperature superconductors and high temperature superconductors. So low temperature superconductors normally require critical temperatures of below 20 Kelvin. This is approximately minus 253 degrees Celsius. High temperature superconductors, on the other hand, only require a higher critical temperature of around 77 Kelvin, or approximately minus 196 degrees Celsius. That still sounds extremely cold, and of course it is, but in the field of application it actually makes a very big difference that you don't have to cool them down quite so far. In practice, this means that instead of expensive helium, inexpensive nitrogen can also be used for cooling. However, there are two other conditions in addition to the critical temperature, and this brings us to condition number 2. A superconductor must fulfill the Meissner-Ochsenfeld effect. In the Meissner-Ochsenfeld effect, a superconducting material always displays a magnetic field from its interior and guides it around the outside. This makes a superconductor a perfect diamagnet. Diamagnetism is when a material weakens an external magnetic field. A superconductor does not simply weaken the magnetic field, but guides it around itself. This also reduces the magnetic resistance in the superconductor to 0. And this brings us to condition number 3, namely electron-phonon coupling. And now we come to the actual physics behind superconductors and the question, what is actually happening here? We already know that superconductors have no electrical resistance at extremely low temperatures. This means that the electrons move unhindered through the crystal lattice of the material. This is because any collision with the lattice would cause friction and with that a loss of energy. But what happens instead is explained by the so-called BCS theory. The following is behind this. The starting point here is an electron. It now moves along the ions, so the charged particles of the crystal lattice. This causes the electron to generate a lattice vibration. The energy of these lattice vibrations is quantized, meaning it comes in packages. These energy packages are called phonons. This vibration deforms a lattice, creating a region with a positive charge density. So here we have more positive than negative charges, and this positively charged region can now attract a second electron. Normally, two electrons would repel each other. At low temperatures, however, the attraction is stronger than the repulsion. And this creates electron pairs, which are referred to as Cooper pairs. The electrons in such Cooper pairs have opposite spins. As a result, they have a total spin of 0. Such particles are also called bosons. And these bosons can move through the lattice without resistance. So in summary, as long as it is cold enough, Cooper pairs form. And because all electrons are in the superconductor are bound in Cooper pairs, there's no resistance in superconductors. In fact, this phenomenon, of course, is extremely complicated. I had, I think, 2 courses in university alone focusing on this topic, but this was at least a brief summary of it, and now we can look at what has been researched at Caltech. These Cooper pairs play an important role in the new discovery by researchers at Caltech. They have discovered a new superconducting state, Cooper pair density modulation, or PDM for short. The researchers wanted to investigate new superconducting phenomenon in a specific material, namely in tiny flakes of a crystalline compound consisting of iron, selenium and tellurium. The material is made up of unit cells that form the crystal when arranged in a row. In order to investigate the superconducting phenomenon, the researchers used a scanning tunneling microscope. This allows the structure of materials and their electronic properties to be determined. For example, the conductivity in very small areas and the number of electron states in an area. And through these investigations, the researchers actually came across a striking and very unexpected result. They discovered a new superconducting state with very striking properties. To understand this, we need to take a look at another fundamental principle, the energy gap. So Cooper pairs, so the electron pairs that conduct electricity in superconductors without loss, are stably bound in a crystal lattice in the material. However, if we wanted to break up the Cooper pairs, we would have to overcome an energy barrier. This barrier is the energy gap. The energy gap is an energy range in which electrons cannot normally exist. Think of it like the steps of a staircase. An energy gap is like having a few steps missing in the middle. Normal electrons can sit on the steps, but they cannot simply jump to a higher step if one or more steps are missing in between. They need enough momentum, so a minimum amount of energy, to overcome this gap. The size of the energy gap tells us how much energy we need to overcome the gap. If 2 steps are missing, we naturally need more energy than if only 1 is missing. The larger the gap, the more energy we need to break up the Cooper pairs. And the more energy we need, the more stable are the connections. The energy gap is therefore something like a measure of the stability of superconductivity. In superconductors, the energy gap is usually the same throughout the material. However, there are also superconducting states in which the energy gap changes spatially. In other words, it is larger in one place in the material and smaller in another. This is called modulation, and this modulation can have a waveform. The energy gap changes in a wave-like manner. Okay, so the Caltech paper also deals with such an energy gap and modulation. The researchers investigated a compound of iron, selenium and tellurium, and they already knew that the energy gap modulates in larger pieces of the material. However, this only applies over a large area. According to previous evidence, these differences should not actually exist when viewed on a small scale. But what the researchers then discovered was completely different from what they expected. In the small flakes of the material, they observed such a modulation at the atomic level. This is simply the smallest possible change in the energy gap, and the researchers discovered it here rather by chance. It had been suspected that something like this might exist. However, such differences in the energy gap could previously only be observed across several unit cells. At the same time, this modulation is also the strongest ever measured. The difference between the larger and smaller energy gaps is simply 40%. By way of comparison, when modulations were measured previously, the values were usually well below 20%. Okay, maybe now you're asking yourself, what do these results mean? And what is the benefit of the superconducting state? We will take a closer look at this now, and we also take a closer look at the big hurdle. You know this from my videos. In every video I have the big hurdle where we look at the limitations of an innovation or science news, so the critical points. Before that, please subscribe and activate the bell so you don't miss any more videos, and also you support this very young channel. So let's start. According to the professor involved in the study, the results make an important contribution to basic research. They help us to understand superconductors even better and are another step towards room temperature superconductors, so away from extreme cooling. In addition, this new superconducting state could also become important for applications that we may not even be able to imagine today. However, there's no concrete application for it yet, and the discovery was rather accidental. Above all, this new superconducting state has so far only been detected in extremely thin flakes of the material, but not in larger volumes. Furthermore, there's only one paper on the state so far. Other research groups have not yet reproduced the results. However, a case from New York shows how important this is. The professor committed fraud in his superconducting research, and 2 of his papers were subsequently retracted by the journal Nature. Until then, the results in the paper had actually been considered a major breakthrough. So yeah, this was a very big scandal. But the Caltech paper was only published this year, of course, so there's still a lot of research that can be built on it. And maybe it will lead to some amazing technology in the future that we can't even imagine right now. After all, this is basic research, and to be honest, it could be a big breakthrough if it is real, and right now it looks like it's real. I talked to some colleagues who also think that it is really amazing. As always, I will keep you up to date if there's new research about it out there, so also another reason to subscribe. And also feel free to write in the comments what amazing superconductor applications you can think of. I'm really, looking forward to see your answers. And by the way, here's another video about superconducting. You should also watch it. It's very interesting. Research made in Germany about a cable that is a superconductor. It's amazing. Watch it. And I say vielen Dank fürs Zuschauen, which means thank you very much for watching. Goodbye, your Jacob.
Nice. Good stuff. The German science guy. Thank you, Jacob. Appreciate that. And again, the materials themselves, there's like so many different ways that you can make superconducting material, so many different recipes, you could say, to make superconducting materials, but it's all about what temperature they start exhibiting those properties, and whether they're high temperature or low temperature, whether it has to be, super frozen. Again, the difference between having to cool it with helium versus having to cool it with nitrogen is a huge difference, because nitrogen is a lot more easily available. The air we're breathing is 79% nitrogen, so you just cool it down and you've got liquid nitrogen.
Aren't we running out of helium from what I've heard? Like
Well, helium
there's
for
a
science
lot less of
applications.
it.
That's one of the things is helium is, it should be easy. It should be abundant everywhere. And I mean, there is helium all over on the moon, for example, is a place where the actual solar radiation hitting the moon causes helium to be generated on the surface there. So they should be able to find, plenty of it there. But then getting it home is part of the issue. The main idea is that there are multiple ways of getting helium. And the question is if there is that insatiable of a thirst for it, in the commercial sector.
Well, if it's being used in the scientific sector, it's kind of a necessity if it's the only way to do things. But
there are other ways. It's just that's one of the ways that you're able to do it. Is liquid helium is able to get to a certain temperature where you're able to get superconducting of certain materials down there. But the liquid nitrogen makes it a lot easier to get at.
Isn't it wild that they kind of found this out by accident? Like that's some of the best beauty of science, man.
Yeah. Some of the best discoveries are accidents, as a matter of fact.
Yeah.
Happy accidents.
Yeah, sometimes you gotta stumble and fall before you find.
Well, when Edison made the light bulb, he had a lot of failed attempts at making a light bulb before he made one that worked. But you only need it to work once. You find that one way that works reliably and that you can reproduce it. And that's the other thing is the reproducibility of anything. So any kind of results that you see that seem fantastic, he mentioned at the end there that it hadn't been reproduced by other teams yet. And that is a huge hurdle in the scientific world. Like hearing something new and amazing that somebody did is great, but hearing something new and amazing that somebody did that they were then able to publish this is how we did it.
If it turns into a fraudulent paper, like that must have been a little bit frustrating. I mean, if the science is actually sound and you can see like there is sound science in it, if the professor is being fraudulent in some of that information, I mean, eventually they're going to figure it out, but it sucks to have to go through that process of having it be questioned that early on.
Well, there have been cases of that in the past with cold fusion, for example. Cold fusion was one of the big examples where, that was one of the big ones. But, that and, people talking about room temperature superconductors, those are things that people had said that they found before, but results were either not reproducible or whatever. In any case, if you come up with something like that, it should be something where you made it in your lab. You can tell me how you made it. I could make it in my lab and reproduce your results. And that way we can see that, yes, this did in fact, do that. And the fact that you published it on that particular date before anybody else did is how we track back to who was the first person to publish this idea. And that's where you get the origin of, a discovery like that.
Yeah, science is a lot like debugging code.
Finding the history.
I have to be able to reproduce it. Otherwise it's not a bug.
Yeah.
It's an anomaly.
not just reproducible by you, but reproducible by others. So like,
yes.
other qualified labs that have the, that have the equipment necessary to do the stuff, should be able to reproduce your results by following the steps that you give them.
Yes. If it's not consistent science, it's not science.
Yep. And a lot of people, they don't want to give away that information right off the bat. If it is something that's a world changing, in this case, a recipe for a superconductor that, nobody else knows how to make it. You have the secret formula on a piece of paper where it could literally just be a couple of letters and numbers that are, C6H12O17, whatever. Like you have, something, you have the magical code of what it actually breaks down into. And if somebody doesn't know how to make it or they don't know what to do with it, they could have the answer and not be able to do anything with it. But if they know what they're looking at and they say, wait a minute, and they actually, look through it and say, oh, I bet that's, and they figure out what it is. Now, all of a sudden they could monetize it and actually turn it into an idea that could change the world.
Copyright it in a way that patent it that I can understand why, like from an industrial or commercial standpoint, why some would want to, possibly hoard or not give out information, feeling like, this is our business. But from a scientific perspective, everybody wants this solved. So, like if you're the scientist who actually does discover something like that and it works and you're told you can't tell anybody, dude, I'd hate to be that scientist.
Well, that's the question. Told by whom, right? Because, society can't tell you that. Like, if you come up with a discovery, you can say it as loud as you want and people can either listen to you or ignore you. But again, comes down to reproducibility. Like if I heard something online, it was a fantastic claim, and it had, hey, try to reproduce it yourself, and here's what I did, and I'm able to reproduce it, then all of a sudden, I'm no longer just believing words that I saw on screen. I actually tried the experiment and reproduced the results, and I can actually document the results.
If you give out private exclusive data that you signed an NDA with a company saying
with a company,
everything we're doing,
that totally different.
They're paying for your research, everything you're doing.
I'm talking basement science guy, not corporate NDA guy. A corporate NDA guy has corporate NDAs to deal with, and he knows that, and that's fine.
Well, they found this at a college, right? They found this at a university.
Usually, and that's the thing, is even in a university environment like that, they're working under either with or under a professor who has the whole patent process, has access to the ways to do that. And in a lot of cases, I mean, with companies like Bell Labs, for example, if you go back a ways, with Bell Labs, when my uncle worked there many years ago, when you start working there as a career guy in Bell Labs, they give you something right off the bat for all of the patents that you're going to come up with from now on, because all the patents you come up with from now on are part of the company. Like they own it. You're putting all of your future patents into the company, but by doing so, you are less protective of your ideas. Like you're sharing your ideas with the people in the company, because you could have somebody across the hall working on completely different stuff, but they might have an insight onto what you're working on that you didn't think of, because they're looking at it from a totally different perspective. So it's good to share that information with people, but normally people don't do that because they want to keep their idea to themselves so that they can monetize it themselves. But in this case, it's already, shall we say, pre-monetized, but in a way, just all the ideas are to be shared among the entire, ecosystem of their company. So it makes for fostering better collaborations between people.
Oh yeah, Bell Labs, without all its different research and departments, could not have done some of the things they did. So it is good to at least have internal ecosystem there that does actually work with each other, and you wouldn't want to stifle your own company's development by hiding half of what it's doing from the other half. That's just silly.
Yeah. But again, some people, they look at it in a protective way like that. Like the less people who know about this particular idea, the less chances there are of a leak or whatever. So in some cases, they keep things very tight lid on things. And a lot of times it suffers for it.
Even at the collegiate level, when it comes to certain papers and discoveries, they control libraries of that information and who has access to them. If you are part of the college and you are part of the study, then you can see some of these papers, but there are some that, like, the average person just can't walk in there and get this information out of some collegiate studies.
Sure. And in some cases, it could well be, it could be a long-term study, a 20-year study. And if you're looking at the information after 2 years, you're looking at incomplete data. So, the idea is if it's a 20-year study, you're supposed to look at the full 20 years of the study. So I can see why they would want to keep certain things not hidden, but it's just a matter of you don't have the full context yet of what you're supposed to be looking at.
Part of it is being responsible and not like just unleashing information that sometimes people can build some crazy shit if you give them too much information. Sometimes it is being a little responsible with information, and other times it's the value of higher education and, access to like high-end science and medical knowledge. You do pay for. You pay for in time to learn it. You pay for in access to get it. It's not as simple as Googling.
We do love new advances in material science, though, whether it comes from Scotch tape, peeling off layers of, lead from pencils, or whether it's, stuff that actually takes a super collider or high power lasers to make, in any event, like any way of making something that is new and useful in some way is something worth looking into.
Yeah. And it is cool. We can at least Google this kind of stuff. Thank you, German Science Guy. You are going to be my new favorite channel for German tech and science.
There you go. Yep.
I love the channel concept. I'll be back.
Ferrofluid.
Yes. Well, now that we know what a superconductor is and what it could possibly be if they do solve that cooling problem, ferrofluid. I want to get me some of this. The Action Lab at the Action Lab, he got a whole bunch of it. And he's like, what can I do with this, and how will it respond to this superconductor? And this isn't your normal juice here.
Do not feed it after midnight.
Yeah.
I cannot stress this enough.
There's a gremlin fluid. Yep. So at the Action Lab is going to take that like giant bucket of ferrofluid he has and show us like different ways that it reacts when you put a superconductor around it.
And we'll make it into a meme later where we'll make that look like my hair.
Yeah. It's going to look like one of those little yarmulkes on your head.
Let's see.
You better have a magnet in there.
Yeah, for sure. I got 2 on the sides.
Hey everyone, today I'm going to be showing you what happens when you bring a superconductor next to ferrofluid. And since I bought so much ferrofluid for this experiment, I'm also going to be testing what happens when you pour a liter of ferrofluid on a giant neodymium monster magnet. I have a magnet under my white plate here. Let's put some ferrofluid on the plate. Ferrofluid is made of nanoparticles of iron, and when you apply a magnetic field to them, they follow the magnetic field lines in this spiky pattern here. The stronger the magnetic field is, the closer together the spikes form. So first let me show you what happens when I move a regular magnet near the ferrofluid. You can see it just sucks it up to the magnet. Okay, now let's bring the superconductor up to it. Okay, watch it push the spikes out of the way as I bring it close. That's because it's opposing the magnetic field at first. Now if I were able to get it closer, then it would lock in place and it wouldn't push the spikes out of the way. But if I push it any closer, it's going to go into the ferrofluid. Another cool thing I observed is that when you bring it near the ferrofluid, the spikes actually start to flow towards it. Now this seemed odd to me because there wasn't a reason magnetically why it should do that. So I tested it with just plastic that was cold, not a superconductor, and it did the same thing. So that means it's completely due to the coldness of the superconductor and not the properties of the superconductor itself. That could be because the denser fluid sinks down and the hotter fluid rises up. So first let me lock the magnets in place on the superconductor by pressing it through the magnetic field, and once it's locked there, it will just stay there. So it can spin in one axis, but it's locked in the other axis. Now let's pour some ferrofluid on it. Whoa, that is amazing. Okay, that was pretty amazing, but now let's see what happens when I pour a liter of ferrofluid on my giant monster neodymium magnet. So I got my monster magnet right here, Gonna put this plexiglass over the top of it. Now let's pour on the ferrofluid. Whoa. This magnet has a 1,000-pound pull force. It's extremely strong. Whoa, this is weird. The fluid spikes up before it even pours out. So this is a liquid that's not viscous at all. It's almost like water. Whoa. When it gets around the magnet, it's like the density increases past the density of mercury. It makes my hand just float in it. In fact, I have to push as hard as I can to get my hand to even go inside of it. This is so weird. Okay, this is so weird. It feels like this is solid, like I have to put pressure on it, but it's a liquid. This is the weirdest thing I've ever felt. Okay, it's completely sideways now. Look at this. And it's hanging on there still. Let me show you how this coin normally sinks to the bottom. Now, if I pick it up out of here, here's the coin. Watch it pop up when I let it go. Okay, now I have quite the mess to clean up. Ferrofluid is extremely messy. Look at this stuff. And it dyes everything that it touches. Thanks for watching another episode of the Action Lab today. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, don't forget to subscribe if you haven't subscribed to my channel yet. And you can also hit the bell so that you can be notified when I release my latest video. And thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.
Oh. I hit the subscribe and the bell. I want to see that kind of stuff all the time.
I saw that mess coming too. Like as soon as he was putting his hands through it, and I saw that it was like turning the gloves completely black. I'm like, oh, that's gonna be a mess. And cleaning it off of that that plexiglass, like when you had it sideways like that, you just put it over that bucket and pull the magnet away, and just sploosh, it all just comes right down.
That's the easy way. Although it was cool to see him actually like take the cup.
Yeah.
You see this ball that's actually feeling like something the way he's describing it, and then all of a sudden you're just taking the liquid for what it is and putting it right back in a cup.
Yeah, it's pretty cool, pretty wild. And that's the thing is, I love the idea of magnetic liquid like that.
The possibilities. I mean, there's got to be like people looking at this like, what can we do? What can we do? Because when he was putting it over like the screws and like bolt, and he had the like, I could see sophisticated space machinery that like we need to build a wire that needs these particular parts, and we need to build it like out in space very conveniently. So we got all these little parts here. We string them together, ferrofluid, just keep delivering that to us.
Basically, that comes down to being the replicator, the Star Trek replicator, like the beginnings of that, like being able to make certain tools and things like that that you would need in space. And that's where the 3D printing has really gotten us there, where we can make the most simple types of things. Like, oh, you need a crescent wrench of a certain size, and the one that we had flew off into space. Well, you can make something like that. It might not be as strong, but you can try to engineer something that you could 3D print that would do the job.
It was interesting to see that it reacted as much to the temperature that was being used on the superconductor as to magnetic properties. When he first mentioned that, like, this isn't happening because the magnet, it had me puzzled too. Like, why?
Well, the cold plastic was
he
a
went
good
and
test.
found the answer. Yeah.
The cold plastic was a good test. Also, with the screws that were on there, my guess is that the screws were not made of a conducting material, perhaps. So it could be that the magnetic field was going around the magnet, but not going around the screws. So that might have just been trying to do the same thing on the magnet, and the screws were just in the way. Where if the screws were magnetic, well, I mean, they had to be because they were connected to the magnet. So I mean,
well, there's a magnet in the middle. Yeah.
But the whole device, like the magnetic field, gets more complex when you get a shape like that, I guess, is what comes down to. And the way that the fluid hangs also has to do with gravity, because what areas it can hang on to and what areas the liquid is trying to fall off of, and it'll hold itself on there from the magnetic force. It's good stuff, though.
There's got to be some practical uses for it that somebody out there is cooking up a new invention.
Well, one big thing was always the fact that anytime that you have a conductor moving through space, you're generating electric field. I mean, because you have a magnetic field moving through space. So in this case, if you have a magnetic fluid and you have it moving through like a coil, let's say, like a spiral, tube, you are generating a field. So you could use that to your advantage. But the question is, would that field then be getting pulled? Would that fluid be getting pulled back against by something that you're trying to do work? If you're trying to extract work from the system, do you end up, losing any gains that you would have gotten? That's usually what you come down to.
And considering how solid it becomes, I mean, it doesn't become like totally solid. He could mush into it. Is it possible that you could control this in a way that you could make it more like form into a sword?
Well, in theory, yes. I mean, it comes down to how well you can control the magnetic field, and you can control the magnetic field pretty accurately. But in most cases, to control the field accurately, you have to control the field within a space. Like, you have to have access to the full outside of a space. So, like, let's say you had a cylinder container or space in your lab. You could make a sword or something like that by having a field that, basically is fields that go warp in, like spherical fields that are, kind of like snow coning up on top of each other. Like if you had an ice cream cone with like 5-6 scoops on it, that kind of idea, those would all, you could make a sword out of something like that. But again, it's about how well you control that field.
Once you turn off the magnet, now your ice cream melted.
Yeah, exactly. And that's one of the things I was looking at was something such as, you ever see earthquake proofing that they do for buildings, where a lot of times they want to have something that
they have that like malleable layer. So
And sometimes it is magnetic levitation in the first place, but this is the kind of a thing where they could make something that, with a strong enough electromagnet in the middle there, it would have that, field. But then if you lose power, spoosh, the whole thing pancakes, because all of a
damn, I
sudden,
thought you were coming up with a good invention. Now you're going to kill a million people.
well, here's the thing. I mean, as long as the field, like, you put good backup generators there and you never lose the field. But yes, if you were trying to magnetically levitate, a bridge or a building or something like that, and all of a sudden the power gets cut, that's bad news. But something like that would make a good shock absorber, for example, or a semi truck, for the back, riding on the cab in the front, right? Like there's a certain amount of shock absorption that you need in there for when you're going over the bumps. Could be stuff that's in there that's using magnetic levitation and or these types of things.
I think you got a good practical idea. A high-tech shock absorption system could utilize stuff like this. I mean, magnetism in itself is useful, but when you do add that extra padding, the possibilities are out there.
Yep. And again, the difference between the permanent magnetism and the electromagnetism, where you could have a permanent magnet in there that even in the case of complete loss of power, you still have something holding the liquid together. And then when you apply the field
to the backup,
and then when you apply the field, that's when it gets stronger or gets to a certain to withstand a certain amount of force. Let's say.
Yeah, we're gonna invent some cool shit.
Yeah, why not?
If they don't do it, I'm going to watch enough videos to do it myself.
And if we don't invent it ourselves, we can at least just ask, well, can you do it? And, somebody else might have the setup where they could say, I could find out.
Yeah. And I can go to the Action Labs, see what it actually does when you do it. Thank you for buying that stuff and doing that, because
I don't want to have to do that cleanup.
It would have kicked my ass if I made that mess here, but I totally would have.
I totally would have too. Yeah. And somebody walk in, you're like, what? And you look around, you're like, oh yeah. I had the day off. What?
And it's the big magnets that are also tricky to get access to. I mean, you're lucky if you got them.
What I should figure out, I'm not even sure where they are right now, but at one point I did buy, do you remember, I don't remember if it was ThinkGeek or somewhere like that, but it was one of those types of places where I bought one of those high powered magnets, but it's the little magnetic spheres. And it's like, I don't know, 168 of them or whatever it is. It's like, just a solid pack. But the idea was the package that it came in was much bigger than the actual magnetic spheres, because the spheres themselves had to be that far away from the edges. Not even padding, but just space. Like they had to be empty space between the magnets and the edges so that they weren't, sticking to the wall of the UPS truck when they're driving down the street. They're around here somewhere. I should figure that out.
Remember that guitar a couple weeks ago?
I was thinking about that.
The guy that put together a magnetic guitar.
Yeah.
It's that level of magnetism.
Yeah, some strong magnets. Yeah, exactly.
He almost lost a finger doing that.
Exactly. He was afraid to play it. And I can see why.
Thank you at the Action Lab. That was a fun one to watch. And like I said, people love their science channels because 5.1 million. You go, boy. Keep on trucking.
Very cool.
Yeah. And another big science channel. I'm so glad to get these into our list. ASAP Science, and they got 10 million and counting, because all sorts of science on this one. I mean, everything. And measurements. Oh, damn. Ball size. Oh, hey, Ange, we might find an answer to what's in that nutsack. And why is it so big or small?
Mm-hmm.
His parents were creative.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
So at ASAP Science, I couldn't resist this one after seeing the other one, because I started thinking, like, what could you do with globs of material if you can kind of nudge them around and move them around in things? And it seems like that's the concept going on here. This is where nanotechnology begins.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And again, it comes down to how we're controlling it. Is it a magnetic field that we're having to control at a very precise level to make certain things happen with this? Or is it a time delay thing? Or that's where it comes down to, different types or different kinds of applications. If you wanted to do a drug delivery system, you would want something that stays solid for a certain amount of time or through certain conditions, but then arrives,
comes in a capsule, and like, I'm
yeah,
inside.
Exactly. And then it goes, yeah, and then all of a sudden it's free. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Now the thing that fascinated me with this is, Mavi has been going through a pancreas problem the last week, and they had to go in. They went in with cameras and found where the stones were, because they had to get rid of the stones, and then they went in to laser them like Star Wars style, pew pew, and they hit a part where it's pinched, it's real small, so they couldn't get the camera in there. And when I see this and its ability to turn into a liquid, go through something that anything else couldn't, and then turn back into a controlled shape, pretty much a robotic part, if you think about it. This is where internal digestive system technology, we're there.
To me, that also comes down to mimicking nature, right? A lot of biomimicry going on and that kind of thing. And to me, that would be kind of like octopus or squid, like octopus tentacles, because even without the grippers on there, just the ability for, if you've ever seen an octopus get into like a jar, like, you see this big octopus and it's able to get its entire body into a little jar just by, just because it only has the beak. If it can fit its beak through an opening, it can get the rest of its body like smushed through and, and then reform.
Ange had me watch a video where they tested this octopus through a maze. Hey, I'm still here. They tested this octopus through a maze and all sorts of different puzzles and challenges. And there were certain parts where it was like, there's no way that octopus is going to get through that, but it got one tentacle through, like it was liquid, figured out what it was dealing with, and then everything else kind of went through the tiny little hole.
Yep. I saw another one using like a coconut that it found two halves of a coconut, and it just like had the suckers holding it, and it could hold the shell closed. So it's just like or it could open it up enough and like use tentacles to like move over and then close up again. They're very intelligent.
You're going to see an example in this video that's going to remind you of that octopus going through that. When I watched it, I was like, yes, this is like a robotic octopus that can turn into any shape.
Nice. Let's check it out.
This is a slime robot, fully capable of moving in any direction through tiny spaces, around objects, and even grabbing onto things tightly. And it's completely created and controlled by humans. No, it's not Flubber from the movie with Robin Williams, a greatly unappreciated scientific masterpiece. This slime is truly a groundbreaking discovery and creation that could change the future of robotics, medicine, and humanity. Yes, the future of humanity may be impacted by a magnetic turd. Okay, in all seriousness, what exactly is it and why is it significant? Well, we use robots for all sorts of purposes, but they aren't exactly known for their dexterity and nuanced touch, which is why this robot simply learning how to peel a banana without smashing it to bits was a huge breakthrough just this year. Miniature robots have also been created to navigate tight spaces, like these tiny objects coated with a magnetic spray, making the delivery of pills to a very specific part of the body a possibility. And the rise of nanobots has even opened the potential for microscopic machines that could be deployed inside the human body and act to identify or even destroy cancer in the future. But robots combining the ability for tight or tiny navigation and physical manipulation together are super rare. On the one hand, you have elastomer-based soft body robots that are great for gentle manipulation in sensitive environments, but are limited in their deformability or how small they can get. And on the other hand, you have fluid-based soft body robots, which are really good at fitting into small spaces, but are limited by their unstable shape. This is where our slime robot comes in. The slime is made up of a polymer called polyvinyl alcohol and borax, which can actually be created fairly simply. What you end up with is a slimy, blobby-like substance that can act like both a liquid and a solid. This behavior is called viscoelasticity. And it's kind of like when you mix together water and cornstarch and make oobleck, the non-Newtonian substance whose viscosity changes under pressure. If you smack it or touch it really quickly, it acts like a solid, but if handled slowly and gently, it acts like a liquid. The same is true of this slime. But what gives it its unique ability to move are tiny particles of neodymium magnets. Neodymium can create powerful permanent magnets that are super useful when you need a low magnet mass or volume, and in this case, because the slime is so small, the researchers wanted to use tiny magnets with high power. And these magnetic particles within the slime can be manipulated in order to make it travel, rotate, or form different shapes.
I'm quite interested in using the magnetic field to drive, this kind of tiny device inside the body. The main advantage is that the magnetic field is not that harmful to the tissue, to the body.
Okay, so we've got a magnetic slime robot on our hands, but what exactly is it for? Like, what can it actually do? Right now, the biggest focus by its creators seems to be in the medical field, though it's certainly not limited to just that. Because of the slime's ability to navigate tiny spaces and be manipulated, it could be useful in the digestive system. For example, if you or a child swallowed something toxic like a small battery, the slime could be deployed to wrap around a toxic object and help prevent toxic electrolytes from leaking out. Much like other miniature soft body robots, it could be used to assist minimally invasive surgery or even targeted drug delivery. The slime is able to navigate channels as small as 1.5 millimeters, which is tiny. Like this tiny, so small. They were proven to work on multiple surfaces and substrates in complex environments from plastic to glass, silicone, water, metal, and paper. Ultimately, the slime is extremely versatile, which is rare for conventional liquid-based robots. It can stretch up to 7 times its original length, and unlike other soft body robots, this slime doesn't require a pre-designed shape and can be reconfigured in situ. The magnetic slime can grasp multiple target objects simultaneously and even extend tentacles in 3 directions.
I consider it more like a surgical tool because it's larger and you can apply a much stronger force on the object because you can put more magnetic material inside of the slime robot in comparison with those nanobots.
But truth be told, the functional use is still really hypothetical and in its fundamental research stage, where scientists are just trying to understand its material properties. It could be used as an electrical conductor to connect electrodes in hard-to-reach places, or in motion sensing of the human body for wearable devices. Electronic devices often fail because of partial disconnection, whether from environmental factors or scratches by sharp objects, and this slime could help repair those. The slime is even self-healing, bringing itself back together after being chopped apart. This is because of the hydrogen bonds between the borate ions and OH groups, which can occur spontaneously without the help of external sources. And after healing, it maintains its physical integrity and electrical capabilities. The researchers even did a series of tests with LED light bulbs showing the slime self-healing between a circuit and the lights coming back to full strength. The true possibilities are just beginning to be explored, as it's essentially a new type of material, and that will likely be the focus of future experiments with the slime. Of course, it's important to remember that the slime does not have any form of sentience or autonomy, as it's completely controlled by human manipulation, at least for now. And in its current state, the magnetic particles themselves are actually toxic, but protective layers of silica have been tested for hypothetical use in humans to keep it safe.
In the future, we hope that we can realize some kind of autonomous control, and also the device can have some intelligence. Basically, the slime robot should know how to deform, how to behave, how to manipulate or interact with the environment. So really, we have 2 parts. One is from the engineering point of view, the other is its application for medicine.
At the end of the day, it's another really creative and cool step in robot creation and manipulation that will likely bear even more fruit for future research and more creations. Speaking of creations and creativity, I want to thank today's sponsor, Skillshare, who's giving 30% off a year-long Skillshare membership for anyone who clicks our link in the description or uses our code ASAPScience30. You want to improve your skills? Skillshare's gotcha. You want to develop new ones? Skillshare's got you covered there too. You all know how much we love using Skillshare here at ASAP Science, and I know you will too. A course I recently learned so much from is called Find Your Style. 5 exercises to unlock your creative identity by Andy J. Pizza. Yes, Pizza. The course helps you find your personal artistic identity through exploration, whether it's art, podcasting, speaking, or any place where you want to develop a strong sense of self and point of view. How do you know your own taste? What makes something good? These are questions that I often ask myself and even struggle with, and so it's nice to hear them processed out loud and have the ability to work through them. It's just one of the thousands of inspiring classes you can take to invest in your personal growth, whether you're wanting to make a career pivot or just expand already existing resources, from technical classes on photography and animation, to personal and spiritual growth, to plant care. Skillshare has it all. Even though science can often feel very straight-lined or like a narrow way of thinking, it's been shown time and time again that some of the best and most celebrated scientists are people who expanded their horizons and other creative interests beyond science. So I highly recommend you to try that out yourself too. Again, check the link out below or use our code ASAPScience30 for 30% off a year-long Skillshare membership. Thanks for watching. Make sure you like the video, subscribe, and we'll see you next time for some more science. Peace.
We'll get a Skillshare for Ange on that plant care, and she'll never have another plant die on her.
Yeah, that's right. I really like the part where they had the thing deforming like the 3 different directions. Like, that's pretty badass. Like, I'm thinking about repairs on a space station or somewhere, you know, in a nuclear reactor, areas that you don't want to put a person into, but you need to get a repair done. You know,
or you don't necessarily want to put this in a person. I mean, they're proceeding with caution there. They're not just like mad scientist approach. I like that they're thinking of it in a practical medical vision, because when it comes to that dietary kind of surgery, like what May's going through, this could be groundbreaking for those tiny little parts of your digestive system.
And like they were saying, they could have the microcoding essentially, where any of those parts that are toxic, any of the the actual magnets that are in there, those tiny magnetic particles that need to be coated, you can coat those with something that is biologically friendly, and then you can have them, as long as you don't need to coat it too thickly, because you still need the magnetic field to be able to penetrate out to be useful. So
I'm thinking, what if they get AI logic in there along with this goop, and smart goop that can actually go through your body and sometimes do things that your body's no longer doing properly. This could be like big deal in the long run.
Oh yeah. And when you actually look at the biological machinery going on in your body, when you look at what's going on inside your cells, like the stuff that's going on is crazy. Like looking at the visualizations, some of them we'll look at them one day on when we're offline, because there's some just crazy stuff going on inside the cells, looking at the machinery that's made. And if we were able to even just make machinery that's even a tenth that complex, starting from molecules and working our way up from there, we'd be in business. Basically, we'd be able to make complex machinery for biological purposes.
We're making CPUs the size of an atom, so like you shove that in the goop and now it thinks.
If only it were that easy. Phase 3 profit.
We'll get there. We'll get there. And ASAP Science, if we're getting there, they're probably going to be the ones covering, because that is cool, man. I will be back. I love all these topics I'm seeing.
Oh yeah, for sure.
At ASAP Science, awesome Freshie channel. And
Sabina,
Sabina needed to get into our subscription list, because this is one that I go to a bunch on mine. So I was going through a quantum rabbit hole a couple of weeks ago, and I wanted to actually bring in her talk there, on the quantum computing side, but it didn't fit with the rest of the topic. So I got you in here now, Sabina, because graphene was something I wanted to include in these unusual sciences we're looking at, because there's a lot of potential there. I mean, when they discovered it, it's like, wow, this has a lot of promise. We're going on 20 years now, and they're starting to actually find some possible uses, some good possible uses, but it's also possible it just broke a fundamental law. And that's actually what attracted me to this one, because I was just going to look at one about what graphene is, and Sabina's like, we might have just broke a law.
Nice. Breaking the law.
Yeah, at Sabina Hassenfelder. If you're a science geek like us, this is one of the best for that daily science fix.
Oh yeah, I'm a huge fan of physics and material science in general, and this is right up my alley for that, for sure.
Yes, this would have been what I would have had on TV as a kid all day.
Yeah, exactly.
Did graphene just break a fundamental law of physics? This is what the headline said. Let's have a look. Before we talk about graphene, a big thank you to all my supporters, especially those of you in Patreon tiers 4 and higher. Without your help, I wouldn't be able to bring science news to you. If you want to join the community, you can do so on Patreon or right here on YouTube. But now let's talk about graphene. Graphene is a sort of miracle material that scientists have studied intensively since its discovery 20 years ago. It's made of a single layer of carbon atoms arranged in a honeycomb pattern, like a sheet of chicken wire basically, but just one atom thick. Despite being amazingly light and flexible, graphene is exceptionally strong and conducts electricity and heat better than most other materials. Its discovery won a Nobel Prize in 2010, and it's been said to give us everything from faster electronics to better batteries and advanced sensors. Graphene has been the future of technology for 2 decades now, so at this point it's starting to look like German airport construction. I think it's fair to say it's been somewhat overhyped. But what's new? Well, according to the new press release, not only did graphene break a fundamental law, the researchers have also for the first time observed electrons in graphene behaving like a nearly perfect quantum fluid. This, the press release says, makes graphene an ideal low-cost platform for investigating concepts from high-energy physics and astrophysics, such as black hole thermodynamics and entanglement entropy scaling. Well, wow. That sounds impressive. But what did they actually do? The headlines are about a team from the Indian Institute of Science who just published a new paper in Nature Physics. They report that they measured how charge and heat move in ultra-clean graphene and found a huge mismatch with what metals usually do. In normal metals, the conductivity and the heat transfer follow a relation known as the Wiedemann-Franz law. This is because normally the electrons carry both electric charge and heat, so the ratio of thermal conductivity to electrical conductivity is proportional to the temperature. However, the electrons in graphene don't behave this way. Rather, they behave like an almost perfect fluid called a Dirac fluid. It has extremely small viscosity, as small as theoretically possible. Loosely speaking, the reason is because the electrons interact more strongly than in ordinary metals. This supposedly fundamental law, therefore, simply isn't fundamental. It's an effective, a derived, approximate relation that works for most metals, and it just doesn't work for graphene. Physicists understand reasonably well why. You simply wouldn't expect this law to even apply. So much about this. How new is it? The brief summary is it isn't new because it's been measured before. Indeed, it's interesting to look at what they write in the paper as opposed to the press release. In the paper, they write that a material like graphene naturally violates the Wiedemann-Franz law and that several experimental reports on the breakdown of the Wiedemann-Franz law have provided valuable insights into the formation of a Dirac fluid. So what then is new? The new thing is that they have used an extremely clean version of graphene with very few defects that shows this effect particularly strongly. That improves a lot on previous measurements. It's a fine experiment, really, but it doesn't rewrite physics textbooks. What's with the talk about testing black holes? This refers to a type of quantum simulation known as analog gravity. This basically means that small fluctuations in this electron fluid in the graphene behave similar to how the quanta of light behave near black holes, or so we think. It's basically a customizable model. However, to use this simulation, you must assume that the mathematics is the same. You can't use it to demonstrate that they are the same. Also, I've worked on analog gravity for some while, and I can tell you that the maths isn't even all that similar, which is why I don't work on it anymore, because I don't think we'll learn anything from it. In summary, I give this paper a 1 out of 10 on the bullshit meter. I think it's a nice experiment. It's not a 0 because I'm not qualified to judge on how good their measurements are, and I'd like to see an independent confirmation for this spectacularly large violation of the law. But I give the press release a 10 out of 10 on the bullshit meter. This press release was almost certainly either written by one of the authors of the paper or at least approved by them, which makes this a good example for why I don't trust scientists. Or maybe the real experiment here was how far you can stretch a headline before it snaps. Problems. I'm sure you have a few. But problem solving is a skill you can train, just like any other. I found that a simple and effective way to do this is with Brilliant. Brilliant offers courses on a large variety of topics in science, computer science, and mathematics. All their courses have interactive visualizations and come with follow-up questions. Whether you want to learn to think like an engineer, brush up your knowledge of algebra, or want to learn coding in Python, Brilliant has you covered. It's an effective way to build up your knowledge and train your problem-solving skills. And you can do it whenever and wherever you have the time. And of course, I have a special offer for viewers of this channel. If you use my link brilliant.org/Sabine or scan the QR code, you'll get 20% off the annual premium subscription. So go and check this out. Thanks for watching. See you tomorrow.
You will see me tomorrow.
Yeah, and I love brilliant.org. That is a good one.
And I love having a bullshit meter.
I knew you were gonna love that.
I need one of those. I found it interesting that, like, as far as the science itself, and like, you know, you get a 1, that's actually good. How the press, and that is a lot of times how they make things look in, like, papers and announcements, sometimes overinflates the science.
Yep. And one thing I will say is that, you know, being in tech support for many, many years, at certain times I had to deal with some of the salespeople in the company, and like they're on the phone with a client trying to, like, they're asking me some question like, hey, does the software do XYZ or whatever? Like, you know, they're asking me if the software does something, and I'm like, why are you asking? And like, you know, I can kind of engineer like through what they're asking in my head, but it's like not really. And you know, and then they turn around and they say to the client like, oh yeah, we can make it do that, blah 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 blah. And like they basically just sold a promise to somebody because they stretched what they heard from me. They didn't hear an absolute no from me on does it do this, so they turned around and said yeah we should be able to do that, and sell it to somebody else. So I can see where the person writing the paper is somebody who is, you know, a journalist for a paper, or, you know, in this case it should be a science person, you know, for a science paper. But in some cases it could be somebody who is a journalist for, you know, a publication, who is then, you know, taking scientific information from a scientist, and they may be writing an article on something they don't fully understand. Not that that's the case here, but I can see that happening in cases where there is an article going in somewhere that, you know, someone who is not the author of the paper has to write it, and they have to understand it well enough in order to cover it. And if they see it as a breakthrough or something that breaks the laws of physics, or it was described to them that way, they could, exaggerate more than,
Well,
than
and,
need
and
to.
what they're suggesting as possible use cases or possible what this could mean, assuming or what was she had two words that she used that as a scientist you don't ever want to like assume the math has to be exactly because you don't know until you actually do all the testing to not assume, prove that the math and everything works the same way. Because as we've seen, sometimes the rules change depending on the environment sometimes, and making assumptions that the math is going to be consistent the whole time. That's not science.
Well, in yes and no. Making assumptions and just saying, "Oh, I'm assuming this, and we're going to go from there." That's one thing. But in science, you do have to make assumptions. Like we're assuming, okay, assuming gravity is this strong, assuming
But
we're in a
but
field,
you
like you're
also
assuming
have
we
to
have air
prove.
resistance.
You
Yes,
have to
yes.
be able to prove what you did. So you can't just explain to them like
What she was saying.
This will probably work because we're assuming that if the math's the same, you have to like prove that it works in order for your peers to
There were two
recognize.
different ways that she was using the assumptions, though. Like one is talking about the doing the approximations of the black hole stuff and things like that. And for those types of things, we're assuming the math is the same in those two situations because we're just trying to use it as an approximation. And in that case, we're using it as a simulation or an approximation.
We're using exponential math. So assuming it's like this there, and then when we do a virtual mini black hole, we're assuming that apples are apples here.
And that's the question, is how much useful information are we going to get out of it? That's the question, is how much are we going to rely on the information we're getting out of these simulations, and what exactly is the simulation telling us that we didn't already know? And in this case, it just might be a better approximation of how black holes interact when they're trying to collide. I mean, we know there's a problem with black holes colliding because they can't get close enough together, because the closer they get, the faster they spin, around each other, and then they can't get close enough together to actually crash into each other.
Yeah.
But that's one of those things where you don't want to be anywhere near that happening anyway. So
no. I like how Sabina clearly already knew this. And she's like, but this isn't really new. It doesn't like because she's informed and up to date on all this. So it's not actually new to her, but to me, I was like, well, I didn't think of that with any of this.
Yep. As she said, she had worked on some of that before previously also. So that was something that she was, not only, just generally involved with, but knew something specifically about.
I think she might have gotten out of it because she didn't like having to use that fuzzy math or that assuming kind of approach. Because scientifically, I would not be happy with myself if I was just making assumptions all day long. Like,
well, again, it depends what you're assuming, and science is largely based on making certain assumptions. So again, don't get hung up on assumptions. It's a question of how you're using assumptions and what you're assuming.
It's what you're assuming, because I will assume 2 + 2 is going to equal 4.
Okay. Well, except for very large values of 2. For very large values of 2, 2 + 2 = 5.
That's the fuzzy science sometimes.
That's what happens sometimes.
Okay, well, if you want to know more about all of it, at Sabina Hassenfelder, awesome science channel.
Always good stuff.
She teaches me about the universe.
And now motors.
And these guys are definitely going to be teaching me about motors, because there's a couple of different engines that I looked at. Once I found there was a site like this, I was like, oh, I want to know about quantum motors. I want to know about anti-gravity. Some of these I had no idea that they were even thinking of, but you know how engineering is. It never stops. So if there's a way to build a new engine, somebody's going to find a way.
I saw one, there's a little drone motor that somebody's holding up with little tweezers, like this whole little assembly. It's like, that's a tiny little motor.
Yes, but if I have a bunch of them, it becomes a big propeller.
But can it lift me? I mean, you know how big that wing would have to be?
We're going to need more than tweezers.
I think we need a bigger box.
Yeah. So at motor_explorer1, chock full of motor videos and very out of the box in some cases. Some of these probably conceptual, but it'd be really cool if they can figure it out. And a magnetic motor, I mean, I've thought of this throughout my life, like this something that seems to make sense if you um, want to build something that can be more efficient, use less fuel, possibly. I'm thinking like perpetual, because with magnetics, if you get things going right, can't they just go and go and go?
And that's the thing is that a physicist would tell you you're always going to lose a little bit over time, whether it's through friction or radiative heating, or there's always some loss in the system. So something going and going and going forever is really doesn't ever happen that way. If you had something just spinning in space freely, it'll spin until something outside acts upon it. But it could even be something as simple as the light from the sun hitting it on one side where it's brighter and causing that side to, slow down, like whatever way it's spinning, let's say. The sun hitting it could slow down the spin already. So like something like nothing else acting upon it, but
so if it's something trivial that you can compensate for, like every now and then, here's a gallon of gas, but we use a lot less of it because this seems to be more efficient if you can mix the technologies here.
Yeah, well, that's kind of what they've been doing with the satellites also, trying to keep satellites in orbit. They have their station keeping that they need to do certain satellite burns in order to stay in orbit. And sometimes, they only go up there with a certain amount of fuel. So what you're talking about is being able to, if you get a more efficient system out there, then all of a sudden they're able to do more station keeping with the same amount of fuel or stay up there longer with the same amount of fuel. So that kind of thing is useful for them for sure.
Yeah, if you build it right, you only need to bring this much fuel and not like an unreasonable amount that makes it impractical.
Now, something else that's been very interesting recently is looking at propeller design. And I know this isn't what we're looking at right here, but just looking at...
We will be. We will be.
But propeller design both on things like aerial drones, but also on watercraft, any kind of thing that goes through the water, and looking at the types of blades that they've had. Because if you think about it, we've had propellers on ships for ages, right? And for a long time, and we've always assumed that propeller design had gone as far as it could, and all of a sudden we're coming up with these new designs that are just way more efficient because they're using designs that we hadn't thought of before. And a lot of times it's because we're using AI or we're using computer design to model curves that we couldn't get good answers for in the past because everything was very linear with the calculations we were doing, and it would be too complicated to try to do these calculations on curved surfaces, which reminds me of the first stealth fighter. You remember how it was all angular? The first stealth fighter, the F-117A, but then after that, the stealth bomber is all nice and smoothed out. Like that was a difference in the way we could do calculations. Like the first one, the only way we could do the calculations was through those angles, saying, okay, we can calculate this and this and this and this. But then with that curved surface, that changes the math completely. So that's where all of a sudden the complex math and the ability to do all that with computers just brought us to a whole new level of being able to do this stuff. And I'm loving the new designs that I'm seeing of AI generated designs, as well as just new engine designs that people are allowing themselves to go down certain rabbit holes that in the past people would say, oh, it's already done the most efficient way it can be. We're just now exploring, saying, well, what if it's not? What if it could be more efficient?
We did a good job of thinking outside the box as humans up till now. And with the advent of AI, and like, damn, now I can really think out of the box because I've got a bigger box to think in. Some of these innovations are going to go into high speed.
Yeah. And in a lot of cases, you'll see different innovations that might not have related to each other that can all of a sudden work together symbiotically, where all of a sudden like a motor design like this might benefit from some fluid mechanic thing that's not even related to this at all, but can be incorporated into this design. And you don't realize it unless you work in both fields,
Yeah, I'd work in all of them if you'd hire me.
That's why being a generalist is important, because you can actually pull little things and say, oh, I recognize this from this and this from dam building and this from over here. You can put all these things together.
Yeah, the engineering side of me would love to work on motor design, especially this kind of out of the box. It is to me out of the box motor. Not your typical engineer.
The new high-performance magnetic motor is unlike anything we have seen so far. Some of the most powerful and efficient motors come in a permanent magnet design. The magnets can be incorporated in either the rotor, the rotating part, or the stator, the stationary part. With a combination of electromagnetic coils and magnets, you create an interacting magnetic field and you get rotation. As of right now, there's a handful of magnetic materials you can use, with neodymium probably being considered the most strongest type. The problem is that they are very supply chain restricted, and there's not a lot of flexibility on how you can actually build the motor. However, now there has been a really good innovation for electric motors, because now the magnet can be customized and basically 3D formed into a custom shape. This unlocks many possibilities, because now you can build the magnet part with different materials. There's even the possibility that you can build a near monolithic motor that is ultra powerful and light for aviation. So this is something called a polymagnet. And when you put it towards another polymagnet, you can do something like that. The magnets do not actually touch, and they kind of act like a tractor beam. This one actually twists. So if you go like that, they'll go together. And basically how they work is that they have multiple north and south poles on the same face. And this is great and everything, but it only worked at a small scale, and it was very difficult to bring this into something like a larger electrical machine, like a motor. But recently, there has been a new innovation on how we actually use this powder and make bigger monolithic piece builds. And these magnets are very large pieces that have multiple magnet configurations on them. So the company Advanced Magnet Lab utilizes a wire-like method that's a little bit different from traditional magnet production. Instead of cutting blocks of a magnetic material, it utilizes the process called PM wire to create magnets with a continuous changing magnetization direction. It works by filling thin-walled tubes with permanent magnet alloy powders. It is compacted, locking the magnetic particles in their aligned positions, and then a very strong pulse is sent through the material through electromagnetic coils, and this allows the material to be magnetized. The company utilizes their own advanced coil designs to achieve these complex 3D patterns. And they use software to analyze equations to model the torque, power, and magnetic flux. And with these custom magnets, you can have a motor tuned to its specific application. So an example where you need a highly customized profile is a Hallback array. Normally this would take up to hundreds of magnets just to make this profile. And it basically works by focusing most of the magnetic flux on one side. This kind of magnetic setup is very useful in a lot of different things, and in fact your fridge magnet is probably a Hallback array configuration. When it comes to motors, this is a very good thing because you're concentrating the magnetic flux on one side and almost cancelling it out on the other side. This improves efficiency and reduces eddy current losses in the rotor. And since you're focusing this magnetic field, it also can eliminate the iron core or the back iron in the electric motor's rotor. This significantly reduces the weight and allows the motor to start, stop, and change speeds more quickly, even get higher RPM. Now obviously this would be really good in electric vehicles, including aircraft. The problem with this type of motor is that the Hallback array is notoriously difficult to assemble at larger scale, because the magnets are arranged in a pattern where they want to naturally repel each other. So even if you had a highly custom machine that could put these magnets in, then it could be prone to failure, including adhesive problems, because the magnets are very powerful and they want to come apart. So that's why the AML magnet is really important, because it's not making these motors out of many different magnetic blocks. It's only making it out of a couple pieces, maybe even monolithic. So it's avoiding misalignments between the segments, and it's easier to install in the motor. But this multi-pole magnetization on one piece reduces cogging, so the motor is smoother and quieter. And this is commonly referred to the sinusoidal magnetic field, where you can have a gradual and mathematically changing field. Now, when it comes to actual flux motors, it could be a game changer as well. Before we have seen NASA high-performance, high-power density designs. But this type of magnet can supercharge this because once again it replaces individual magnets with rings. This would enable a higher power density and more torque per kilogram. But since the rings are easier to work with, you can reduce the amount of misalignment errors, which is a difficult thing to perfect in the manufacturing process of an actual flux design. Now, in theory, since you're changing the orientation of the magnetic field, you can have a higher power density than a typical radial motor. So if perfected, this could be implemented into electric cars and aircraft, and maybe even decrease the production costs. So another really good attribute of this build process is that you can use different materials. And this could include something like manganese bismuth, where it's a lot more plentiful, and this could fix the supply chain issues that are involved with neodymium. But what I find fascinating about all this is that the new modern electric motor, especially in electric vehicles and aircraft, will look a lot different if this design process plays out, because now we're not using individual magnets at all, and we're just using more monolithic builds. And that's kind of incredible to think about. But another thing too is that this process could also unlock different types of motors. So we have already seen how Leap 71 used multi-material 3D printers to make spherical motors. But in reality, this type of magnet would make this motor possible. More specifically, it could be possible to build a Hall-back sphere. Now, this type of magnetic array has been highly pursued because it almost concentrates all the flux towards the center. Now, this would be good for a lot of different things, including fusion research, even MRI machines. But it also might be possible to build some type of spherical motor that is highly controlled and can work in multi-axis dimensions. An actuator would be really good for high precision control and robotics. So instead of having stacked motors, you can have a single compact spherical motor that mimics human-like joint movement, like your shoulder or hip, and this would allow for more natural dynamic balancing in humanoid robots. Ultimately, this new build process has unlocked a new type of magnet, and this magnet could be a game changer for a lot of different applications, some that we have not even considered yet. But more importantly, I would like to know what you think, so please leave a comment, like the video if you enjoyed it, and make sure to subscribe to my channel.
Oh, I got some ideas. I thought of like I want my next hip replacement and arm replacement and knee replacement with one of those.
There you go. Magnetic activation. Yeah. The axial flux motors. I mean, there could be a lot of new designs, and even just the fact that it is, compact and looks almost like pancake design. Like, it's almost like the old, like the big, reel to reel, like old film projector reel. Like
Yeah, that was what you put them in.
Exactly. That kind of thing. Nice.
Well, there's so much power in magnetism that it seems like something we haven't tapped nearly as much as we should. The power of magnetism could be a lot of the answers we've been seeking are right in front of our face. We just need to understand it better.
Well, even some of the most recent fusion advances have been using stuff like that, because there's one, basically, if you've ever heard of the Z-pinch, the idea is that having a very, very strong magnetic field, even for a very short period of time, you can crunch things down on the Z-axis, so like on this one line. So if you had like a quarter, like on one case, they took a coin, a quarter, and they had it in there, and they subjected it to this massive field, and it crunches it down from the outside. So like imagine taking a quarter and just crunching it in from all the sides, and it gets crunched down into like a very fat cylinder in the center, but it doesn't look like a coin anymore at all. But the idea was that it's pinching everything down on that one axis. But they're utilizing that particular phenomenon to get all the fuel and the combustible material down into very small space, so that they can mimic the conditions that are in a sun in a very small space, but they don't have to use massive magnetic fields for very long periods of time because they can just do it as a very sudden pinch. Bam, get it all down there and then go, from there. Because the idea with most of the fusion reactions is that you can't sustain, even if they get something ignited, they can't sustain a reaction for a very long period of time. What they need for a power source is something that they can actually fire and continuously fire, or have it go off, multiple times a second over long periods of time in order to generate baseload electricity.
Yeah. One thing that caught me as he was explaining things was scalability. As they're developing this, designing it, conceptualizing it, and hey, we can get this to work in our mini engine. But once we start to try to make it bigger, with magnetism, like there are certain rules, and size does matter, right? And distance
is huge. Yeah, distance is big, because as soon as you start getting further away, the power drops off dramatically as you get further away. So one thing that I loved about it is the fact that they're talking about using this magnetic powder in like a hollow tube and then subjecting it to something to get it, because now you can customize what you're creating. Because again, the big problem they were having with the Hallback arrays is trying to, number one, design a system where you can get the magnetic field to do exactly what you want it to, but getting it assembled is the big problem, because the magnets are all trying to pull and push and not be where you
what
want
kind
them
of
to go.
special machinery are we going to need to put these things together?
But if you can actually send it through, basically the way you're baking the cake is you're baking the magnetism into the cake as you're making it, so you can customize it much better. If you can do that.
Interesting how they're utilizing 3D printing in conjunction with this design, and like you can build anything. I can make a time machine or a UFO.
Well, not just 3D printing, but also utilizing, you can use lasers to do laser sintering and things. I mean, there's all kinds of different methods that you can use, but since we have all these different methods available now, it really comes up to what can you design, and we can figure out a way to make it. So now it's, again, whether it's us or whether it's AI, whether it's the combination working together, I think it's great that we can try to come up with some ideas, again, that are out of the box. And, when I used to come up with ideas when I was a kid that, perpetual motion this or whatever, like, ideas, and then people be like, well, if it could have been done, it would have been done, and all that kind of thing. Well, then nothing new is going to get invented if your idea is, it's great, but you can't because it can't be done that way. Well, we can try to figure out a new way to do it, or we can look at why it doesn't work and figure out a way around that. I mean, that's the thing, is rather than just accepting, this won't work, it's better to me to be able to figure, okay, well, let's try it and see what doesn't work about it, or what do we need to improve to make it work better.
Yeah. If you got that mentality of, if it can be done, I want to be the one who does it.
Even the drone engine you were looking at before, the cyclotron, or the one that has the different type of motor that you would normally see. It's a way of generating lift that is not something that you would normally see. It still uses the same principles, but it just does it in a different way.
Yeah. And speaking of, that'll lead us into so at motor_explorer1, awesome motor information. I will be checking out all of these, especially the magnetic stuff. That's one long time going back to as a kid. I was like, magnets, these are cool. Whoa, they do this. I want to do something with magnets.
Yes, indeed.
And I want a flying car. So I hope they get this right. I-Tech, I had a couple from I-Tech, because they look at some cool shit too. And at I-Tech 21, the one I was going to look at was actually one more like on a UFO style design, but this one actually looks more practical.
Yep. And actually, I have seen, like I said, drones using that principle for an engine.
Yeah, if the design and everything works good, I want one of these in the next couple of years. They promised me I'd have a flying car by 2000 in the Jetsons, and we're overdue.
Just remember, I don't want people flying in a flying car over my house.
This one, kind of competes with the helicopter. This I would call next gen helicopter approach.
Nice. Or personal, human moving drone.
We'll give you a cool name.
Yeah.
When we think about vertical flight, the image that comes to mind is almost universal. A helicopter. A huge rotor slicing the air above, a smaller one on the tail fighting against torque, and a body that needs to tilt just to move forward. But what if vertical flight didn't need any of that? Imagine an aircraft that can hover like it's frozen in place, slide sideways as easily as a drone drifting through a warehouse, brake in midair without pitching forward, and rotate smoothly while remaining perfectly upright. Not a helicopter, something entirely different. This machine exists, and after more than a century of disappointing prototypes and spectacular failures, it has finally taken its first successful full-scale flight. But before we get to that flight, there is a question worth asking. If this aircraft is so capable, why did it take so long for anyone to get it to work? The answer goes back to 1909, when a Russian engineer named E.P. Sverchkov proposed a design so strange that even early aviation pioneers didn't know what to make of it. Instead of a rotor spinning like a ceiling fan, his machine used rotating cylinders lined with vertical wings, more like paddle wheels on a steamboat than anything that belonged in the sky. It was an idea far ahead of the materials, engineering, and electronics of its time. Inventors in the United States, Germany, and Russia tried to build it anyway. Every attempt ended the same way. The blades bent under extreme centrifugal forces. The linkages tore themselves apart. The frame twisted under its own weight. And the aircraft, which needed constant, precise control, had no electronic systems to stabilize it. By the 1950s, the concept wasn't just forgotten. It became an embarrassment, a strange piece of aviation folklore mentioned only as an example of what not to do. Then something happened that no one expected. The idea resurfaced in a completely different field. In the 1920s, Austrian engineer Ernst Schneider adapted the same fundamental principle, not for aircraft, but for ships. His creation, the Voith-Schneider propeller, didn't just work, it became a revolution in marine propulsion. Instead of pushing water backward like a normal propeller, it used a set of rotating vertical blades that could change their pitch instantly. Tugboats equipped with this system could slide sideways toward a pier, spin in place like a compass needle, or hold position in violent currents. It was so effective that it became the standard for rescue vessels, ferries, and offshore machines. So the physics clearly worked. The question was why it succeeded so well in water, but failed so consistently in air. The answer is simple and frustrating. Water is dense and predictable. Air is thin and unstable. The cycloidal concept could dominate the ocean because water resisted motion in a way that made control easier. To make it fly, engineers needed something that didn't exist yet: ultra-light composites, extremely fast electric motors, real-time stabilization systems, microprocessors capable of making hundreds of adjustments per second. Without those, the concept was doomed to fail, no matter how clever the design was. Eventually, the technology caught up, and in 2011, researchers at China's Northwestern Polytechnical University achieved something no one thought possible. They flew the first untethered cyclocopter model. It wasn't large, it wasn't elegant, but it worked, and that single flight opened a door that had been closed for more than 60 years. Suddenly, laboratories that had ignored the concept began paying attention. Funding appeared from the U.S. Army, from Texas A&M, and UC Berkeley. The reason was simple. Helicopters and drones struggle where wind is chaotic and space is tight. A machine capable of generating thrust in any direction instantly, without tilting, could do things that conventional designs simply couldn't. At Texas A&M's Advanced Vertical Flight Laboratory, Professor Mobile Benedict and his team began testing cyclocopters of all sizes. And the smaller they made them, the better they performed. At full scale, the forces on the blades are enormous, but at tiny scales, something unexpected happens. The airflow becomes smoother, the vortices grow stronger, the stability improves. Their smallest working model weighed just 29 grams, lighter than a golf ball, yet it could hover at odd angles, remain stable in gusts that would flip a drone. It was the first hint that the cyclocopter wasn't just feasible, it might be uniquely powerful. But small prototypes were never the real test. Aviation history is filled with ideas that worked beautifully at small scales and collapsed the moment anyone tried to scale them up. Early cyclocopters failed for exactly that reason. But a company in Austria called Cyclotech spent more than 15 years quietly refining the technology. Instead of trying to build a complete aircraft immediately, they focused obsessively on perfecting the cyclorotor itself. Hundreds of tests, redesigned linkages, new blade shapes, rapid response actuators, and carbon fiber components gave them what early inventors never had, a rotor that could handle the forces without tearing itself apart. After more than 800 successful flights with smaller vehicles, they unveiled something no one expected: a full-scale, 340-kilogram cyclocopter called Blackbird. Blackbird didn't just float a few inches off the ground. It rose smoothly, hovered without tilting, slid sideways, rotated with precision, and braked in midair like a drone controlled by thought. And when it completed its first test flight in 2025, it became the first large-scale cyclocopter in history to fly successfully. That moment forced aerospace engineers to reconsider something they thought they understood. The cyclocopter was no longer a failed concept. It was a working aircraft. The implications are enormous. In search and rescue operations, where chaotic winds often ground helicopters, cyclocopters could search tight spaces, navigate dangerous terrain, and remain stable when nothing else can. For military reconnaissance, a hand-launched cyclocopter could fly between buildings, peek over ridges, and return quietly without revealing its location. In cities where future air mobility depends on safety and low noise, a vehicle that never tilts and can maneuver precisely in tight spaces could solve problems that helicopters and drones simply cannot. But there is one challenge left, and it is the same one that plagued early inventors: weight. At small scales, the cyclorotor is light, efficient, and nimble. At large scales, every gram matters. The forces rise dramatically, and the materials must rise with them. Whether cyclocopters become common or remain a niche technology depends on solving that scaling problem once and for all. A century ago, this was an impossible idea. The world wasn't ready. The materials weren't strong enough. The control systems didn't exist. Today, the situation has changed. Whether this technology becomes the future of vertical flight or remains a brilliant idea limited by its own complexity is a question only time can answer. But one thing is certain: the strange paddle wheel aircraft that once embarrassed early inventors is no longer just a curiosity in an old research paper.
Oh, isn't it funny you were saying, like, sometimes you get into that, like, thinking rut, and, like, if everybody just assumed this is what you don't wanna do, major failure, never, never try this again. We might not have one of these in the next couple of years, and I hope we do.
Yeah. And that's the thing, is like they have a working model. They have one that actually flies. And really came down to the control surfaces. It came down to the composite materials getting to the point where they were able to withstand the forces.
Yes, we had to discover and make lighter materials, and we keep making things lighter, so eventually our ships will weigh nothing.
I love those ship rotors, by the way. The ship motors, the fact that technology was proven out in the water, and then why did it work so well in the water and not in the air? And that's the right question. See, like, rather than just starting from, oh, it didn't work, they tried it, it failed, and they put it on the shelf and said, we learned from that, we learned not to do that. Well, why did it work in the water? Why didn't it work in the air? And you look at the different scale sizes and you see where it works best and where it doesn't, which also maybe 4 motors isn't the right answer. Maybe 4 big motors like that. Instead, maybe you want to have 10 in each of those corners, 10 little motors up in each area, spread out across a wing, for example. That way that it's all power is distributed. I mean, more complex control surfaces, but again, that might be a better answer. If you find that the scaling issue is that the forces are too great when you make the engine too large, well, use multiple smaller engines to achieve the same amount of lift.
And in some cases, what are you going to use this for? Is it going to be something to deliver things, or is it going to be rescuing people in a middle of a hurricane.
As they mentioned, I mean, the fact that it is, it doesn't have to do the tilting like a regular helicopter does, so it does have certain control advantages. So there are things that
If
make
you
it
are in the
preferable.
middle of a hurricane, you might actually be better off getting rescued in something like this.
Exactly. But let's just avoid the hurricane in the first place, kids. Stay inside.
Unfortunately, there's no avoiding Mother Nature.
But we have better prediction methods now, so we can say, hey, we can give you more time to get your butt inside and stay out of the hurricane.
I can see why obviously the military would get interested again when you see promise in a design like this and this kind of technology. Not even on the like fighting side of military, on the rescuing side, huge asset.
And also, speaking of technologies that we used to use that we don't use anymore, things like airships, like not the Hindenburg, because we learned not to use hydrogen because that's a bad idea.
Yeah.
You were mentioning that helium, we don't have a lot of it, but helium is something that you can use for something like that. But when you combine something like an airship, a lighter than airship, being able to carry and lift large amounts of weight for very cheap, and then you combine it with something like if you put engines on it that can actually, be lightweight, maneuverable.
It seems so flimsy, though. I would not want to go up. I went up in a hot air balloon, scared the shit out of me, man. I'm like, oh my God, we're so high up, and it's
I would do that.
like somebody could shoot this balloon and.
Yeah, I mean, I would do that in a heartbeat. But I mean, again, I did jump out of a plane using the parachute, so I mean, I would do that kind of thing. I have no problem with that. But at the same time, a big airship, what I'm talking about is like the heavy lift, like the really big, ones where if somebody shot it and some gas started leaking out of it, air started leaking out of it, you're not going down in like a suddenly, like you start losing altitude, and that's where the engines, you have big engines on there that can actually get you, moving and use the regular principles of airplanes to get you some lift and moving, and all that stuff can work. So it's a question of using multiple technologies. I saw one concept where they were trying to make an airship like that goes way up high into the atmosphere where the temperature is much lower, and then it comes all the way back down, and it makes use of the temperature.
The math changes when you're up there.
Exactly. And the idea is the density and the volume that the gas that's in the ship changes also. Same way when you go down in the water, the way whales will hold a full breath of air and go way deep down in the ocean, that air takes up much less space when they're down there. And then as they come up, it's, it expands back to the size that filled their lungs.
Yeah, if air worked like water to us, we'd be swimming in the sky.
Well, that's how I get around anyway.
Which would be cool. I'm Superman or Aquaman.
The Superman looks best, though.
But the way that they overcame like those weight issues to at least make the design work, what do you think their target overall, like this should be able to hold two people on this little platform and be able to drive around?
I wouldn't even go with the people. I would go by kilograms at this point, where like you were saying before, delivery, drones, things like that, starting at that rate, at that scale, and then working their way up would make sense. Because, you don't start from I want to put two people on it and put control systems and all that.
If you're going to make one for like rescue copters, it's going to have to be able to possibly like, hey, we saved this horse in this canyon. It's going to have to pick up some weight.
Well, in some cases, it might even just be in the rescue operation, but being used as a camera, being used as being able to maneuver in and see where you need to get to, and then bring in a regular helicopter or whatever to do the heavy lift if you need to do something where the rotors aren't quite up to the task.
Yeah. Well, I think camera drones, like now, that's already solved. If we just need surveillance, we're going to use these little guys. If we want an actual like cameraman with a guy flying, like, copter style news, then it's got to hold two people and possibly heavy camera.
Well, they did mention, though, that this excels in things like high wind situations where regular drones and regular helicopters would be poor. This would be something that could work there. So that's something where it's just a different control mechanism, and again, the fact that it has the speed of the control surfaces to be able to react instantly, kind of like if you're sitting there and all of a sudden a gust comes that would push you into a wall, you can actually react to that and pull back against it and manage to keep yourself centered where you need to be. because the control systems are that controllable and reliable, where in a regular helicopter you'd be weaving all over the place trying to away from the wall, back in.
Do they use a flight stick approach like the helicopter yoke, or are we talking steering wheel? Because a steering wheel,
it's not gonna be
I
a
know
steering
how
wheel.
to use.
Those
Flight sticks, those yokes, that shit's complicated.
No, it's not even that complicated at all, really. I mean, the best it would be to do a helicopter, because in a helicopter, it is the control surfaces are complicated to get used to. But once you understand,
reversed. I
mean, it's in a helicopter, you've got the stick, right? The stick is where if you push forward, now you're trying to move forward. So that's where you're leaning to try to go, forward. If you pull back, that's where you're trying to go backwards and pull this way. If you push left and right, that's where you're kind of tilting to the side, which will cause you to kind of float off to the side and then even out. If you want to go up and down, that's the collective, which is the other hand, which you're now pulling up or pulling down. That's where if you want to go up, or if you want to go forward very fast, that's where if you want to go forward very fast, you tip forward and pull up on the collective, and now you take off and go that way. So it is complicated in that way. Now, that's not even getting into the other degree of freedom, which is the pedals. You also have pedals in the helicopter, where if you push the one pedal, the helicopter spins this way, and if you push the other pedal, the helicopter spins that way. So you're not only...
That's what fucked me up in my helicopter sim. I was hitting the wrong pedals. I was like,
what's going on? Yeah,
where am I going?
The first time I got into one of those big helicopter simulator games where you have the real controls, I said, give me the most realistic control setup you can. And of course I crashed like within seconds the first couple of times. But the idea was to get a handle on it. So immediately just getting off the ground high enough to where you're not going to just immediately crash. And then you just test it out. You say, okay, if I push the pedal in and you feel yourself start to spin, and then you see how soon you have to push back to get yourself to spin the other way, then you start working with what happens when I use the controls together. Because if you push forward on the stick and lift on the collective, and now you're taking off and moving forward, and that's good. Now you want to slow down and stop. You got to pull back and also pull up on the collective to kind of go whoa and settle into where you want to be.
Safer that I don't fly a helicopter.
That's the thing. I'm the kind of person who would get behind the whole. I would sit in a helicopter and go fly it right now, just based on that. But the whole which switches to hit to turn it on and which lights to watch for emergencies, that's the stuff I don't know. But if somebody could walk me through that.
You kind of look like a helicopter pilot. You just need those glasses.
I got them over there. I do have aviator glasses, so and I even have a leather jacket, so I can look official.
Yeah, my brother got to go in the Air Force copters. He got his helicopter license, and when he was retiring, that's what he wanted to go do. He wanted to go be a helicopter pilot. He got to fly in the virtual sims and feel like you're actually flying a helicopter.
That's the thing, is I would love to get on the base and try that stuff out, because that would just be so much fun. Now, when I was a kid, I mean, my grandfather had a small 5-seater airplane, and he flew actively for over 50 years. So he was a big flight guy. He used to fly back and forth to Puerto Rico all the time. But for him, I actually sat at the controls and actually, flew a plane, quote unquote. We're in the air, we're just coasting somewhere, and it's kind of like you teach a kid how to drive.
Look,
right?
I'm driving.
Yeah, I had control of it, and then, but in the plane, like you were saying, it's a yoke where it is more of like a steering wheel on a stick, which is the same idea.
Yeah, I'd much rather be flying a plane than the copter.
With that, again, if you push away from you're pushing the nose down, so you're trying to go down to the ground, and if you're pulling back, you're pulling the nose up. And if you're turning the wheel, I mean, you're turning the wheel, so you're turning, you're banking this way or that way. And again, you have pedals, which again are the yaw. So in this case, it's basically you could be looking this way and staying perfectly flat, but if you push the one pedal, now you start turning this way or turning that way, depending on which pedal you're pushing. But again, without pushing those pedals, all of a sudden, if the wind is coming in from the side and you want to go this way and you're trying to land, you're getting pushed further off course, and you don't want that. So you can use the pedal to slide yourself back to compensate for the wind and make it so, okay, I'm pushing this way, I'm pointing this way, and even though the wind is pushing me off course, I'm using the pedal to get back on course. So it's all about how you use the controls.
I learned how to fly a plane on Microsoft Flight Simulator.
Exactly. I learned how to crash a plane from Chuck Yeager.
And I actually learned on the really crappy old school one.
The crappy one, yeah.
just
Oh, yeah.
lights. It was pixels. It was like playing Knight Rider in Atari, except in a plane.
Yeah, and that's the thing is, it was enough to get the idea across. I mean, you remember the wireframe Star Wars games back then, where I learned how to fly from that stuff too.
That was
Battlezone,
cutting
another
edge
good one.
flying.
And Battlezone for the on the ground tank game. Yeah, I mean, all that good stuff. We'll have a retro video game night one night too.
Oh, flight sim night, definitely. That's one. I've got two in the family that are hardcore flight sim. My brother and my godson both wanted to be pilots.
And I recently got the Ace Combat, the most recent Ace Combat that was available because it was on sale a couple weeks back or whatever. So I picked that up again. That's another fun one. I mean, I have been playing that one. I was telling you, I bought the actual flight stick for the PlayStation 2 probably, and many, many, many years ago. But for Ace Combat, whatever year that was.
So you know how big of a flight fan I was. In 2001, I bought the Microsoft Sidewinder flight yoke.
Yes.
With force feedback, dude.
Yeah, and those games are fun. I mean, that's the thing is the technology for the games, the software wasn't there yet really at that time. But
I
today,
I got it because of Chuck Yeager and Red Baron were the two that I just loved using it.
I mean, I even remember the flight simulator that was built into Excel, if you remember that one. Like if you go to a certain cell and you type in a certain thing, boom, you go into the flight simulator. Because that was the one where we could actually get to it from the office, even though there were no games allowed to be installed anywhere. I could go, oh yeah, I could just pop open Excel, pop to a cell to a certain spot, type something in, and boom, flight sim time.
I'm a wizard.
And people are like, how did you get that on there? I didn't. It was there already. It's like magic.
Yeah,
but
saw a
we
lot
come
of
back
magic tonight.
That's right. All about magic, from magic fluids to magic flying machines.
Well, to me, science is magic. That magic and science, they come from the same place.
Sufficiently advanced science does look like magic, for sure.
Yeah. And at iTech 21, awesome job showing that. The closest I've seen to a Jetsons car yet.
Yeah.
If they
and again,
if they can just smooth out the rough edges.
And it sounds like they're well on their way to getting there. Yeah.
Yeah. There's a couple of companies that are definitely like ready to sell their flying cars. They're waiting for approval.
Yeah, exactly. Now I remember the first one I remember seeing was the Mahler Sky Car. If you go back, decades at this point, but that was kind of just a concept of having an engine on each of the four corners, basically a small helicopter shrouded engine on each of the four corners, and having it just be able to fly tethered was the initial test. But again, the engines weren't there yet. The regulations certainly aren't there. They're still not there. So I mean, that's where we're gonna have the biggest problem, is being able, because nobody should be able to just get up and fly over my house, right? I mean,
that's the big one. The closest I've seen a company to getting through those regulations fast, they don't have a flying car. It's basically a regular car, but if you're stuck in traffic, the whole concept behind it is it is capable of hovering for small distances. So if you're stuck in traffic and you want to see you guys, and you want to float over that traffic and get to where the traffic's not traffic anymore, this car can do that for small.
I can see the promo video for that, and totally can get out. I could be the guy sitting there like
it's gonna piss off some people.
I could be the guy sitting there like, yeah, I want that, and I could totally be the guy sitting there going, oh hell no, because I can also see that entire traffic jam. Just all of a sudden, they all pick up off the ground. Everyone flies into each other, getting get out of my way. Now you got a traffic jam in the sky. No.
That would be the end result. It'd be like, oh, if you gave people this option, they'd all start doing it, and now the traffic would be multi-layered.
This is why we don't have nice things.
Or flying cars, damn it.
Right. Because we can't be trusted with it. Because I mean, people would drive like assholes, and they're driving the sky like assholes, and we can't have that. So yeah, I get why it has taken this long. It's not the technology anymore. It's now we have to grow up to where we can actually utilize the technology in a responsible manner. That would be a requirement.
See, everyone, stop being assholes, and we can have flying cars.
Exactly. See, that's all it takes. That's all it takes.
Oh.
Is it worth it?
I want a flying car.
I'm on board. I'm on board. I could stop being an asshole to have flying cars.
I waited all this time, man, since I was like 9 years old, and I saw it on the Jetsons. From then on, I'm like, I'm going to live in the future. I'm going to get to see that.
I want that car that I can fly around in, that I can then fold up into a little briefcase and put in my pocket.
Oh, now you're talking some Iron Man shit.
I want that. Might be a few years off. That might be a few years off. We're getting there. We're getting there.
Yeah. Well, we'll be back next week, hopefully with a flying car and a suitcase.
Exactly. We'll see what kind of progress we can make on making flying cars between now and next week.
Yeah. And if I don't get a flying car, I'm building a time machine with that magnetic engine. Watch.
And then we can go to the future and get a flying car and bring it back here.
Ah, see, that's how you think out the box.
We can make that happen right here on Talkin Shhh I.T. Thanks, everybody.
We'll see you next week.
We cover digital audio workstations and music tools. We explore theory, gear, and MIDI too. How to arrange, compose, and the art of arranging. Taking a look at AI and how the times have changed. On a PC or a Mac, and even with a mobile device, we'll be talking about it all every Thursday night. From software to plugins and synths that entice. Dive deep into tech and let creativity take flight. Talkin IT. We're talking IT. Come and join in and have some fun. It's highly educational with a lot to learn. From bedroom producers to seasoned pros, we're breaking it down so knowledge grows. Whether you're a DJ or a beat making wizard, we got the tips and tricks to make your sound sizzle. Mixing and mastering, that's our jam. With the tutorials and tips on how much RAM. Get the best quality from your setup and gear. Tune in every week and lend us your ear. We're talking IT. Come and join in and have some fun. It's highly educational with a lot to learn. We're talking